Hey, it's Rod V. This is part 5 of my first electric guitar build. I've already got the grain filler on it. I've already sanded it down. It's real smooth. Now I'm going to put a vinyl sealer over the top. Okay, I'm going to wipe the body down with some denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol will evaporate really fast, but it will clean off any the oil from my fingers on the wood and everything. So I'm just going to wipe it down just to make sure I get all that off of there. All right, I'm going to let that evaporate for a minute, and then I'm going to wipe it down with a tack cloth to get dust off of it, and then we're going to shoot it with some vinyl sealer. All right, now my denatured alcohol has evaporated, so I'm going to take a tack cloth and wipe any dust off of it. That's pretty good. Let's shoot it. Well, now that's got to dry for about 2 hours. After 2 hours, I'm going to come back, lightly sand it with some 400 grit, and put one more coat on it, let it dry for 2 hours, and then we can put the paint on. All right, so in about 2 hours, the vinyl sealer is dry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some 400 grit paper, and I'm going to leave it hanging because I'm not going to sand it really hard. I just want to smooth it out a little bit. So I'm just going to grab it from the back. Actually, I'll grab it from the top. And I'm just going to... Now I'm going to take my piece of tool noodle. Now I'm going to take my piece of pool noodle and wrap it around so I can get up into the edges up here. Well, now I'm going to take my tack cloth again. I'm going to get a clean part. I'm going to unfold it. And I'm going to wipe it down and get all the dust off of it. Get all the dust I got off of it. All right, put my mask on, spray it again. Alright, that ought to do it. 2 coats is really all you need. That's what the instructions say on the can anyway. Let this dry for another 2 hours, sand it down, and then we can go on and put the paint on it. Alright, the body is still drying. I got about another 30 minutes for the vinyl sealer to dry. But in the meantime, I need to prime my pick guard because I'm going to paint it the same color. But I need to prime it because it's plastic, and the best thing to prime it with is Bulldog. I'm not being sponsored by anybody, no kickback or nothing. This is just what I used. So just put a thin layer of that on there and let it dry. It takes about 15 minutes, and you can paint it. And that's about all you need. Let that dry, and we're good to go. All right, I got everything sanded, ready to paint. We're going to go put my color on it. And the color I've got that I'm going to do is black cherry. I don't know if you can see this really good. I know in my shop you probably can't see it, but I'm going to paint it black cherry. And this paint that I'm using is a 1-to-1 mixture, so 1 part of the paint, 1 part of the medium thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and we're going to go outside and paint it. Mix it up. I'm only going to mix a little bit at a time because this paint's expensive. I think this quart was like $120. All right, I'm going to strain it off into my spray gun and we'll go out. All right, I've already wiped off everything with some denatured alcohol, and I wiped it down with a tack cloth to get the dust off of it. So we're going to go ahead and spray it and see how I do. All right, I'm going to go for coat number 4, and I'm going to put as many coats as I can on it because I've got some spots up here in the crook that either I didn't sand, it looks like fuzz. Once everything dries, I'm going to go back with some 600 grit sandpaper, see if I can't smooth that out, and then put another coat on it. So let me put the 4th coat on it. Or I'm going to put one more coat on it and then let it dry overnight, and then I'm going to light sand it with some 600. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and then tomorrow I will lightly sand it with some 600, the body anyway, because the neck is pretty good, and then clear coat it. Well, yesterday I tried to paint, and I said I was getting some fuzz, like I didn't prep the body well. Well, that's not the problem. After some research and reading and watching some videos, what happened was I didn't have my HVLP gun set right. I had too much air coming out and not enough paint, which meant that the paint was drying before it hit the body, and it left. I mean, it feels like it's got little bumps on it, and that's what that is. So I'm going to sand it back down, and I'm going to repaint it, readjust my HVLP gun, and get a smooth wet coat on there. So, you know, if you're not failing, you're not succeeding. So I'm not going to chalk this up as a fail. I'm going to chalk it up as a mistake, but I did learn from it. So I'm going to sand this off camera because it's like 100% humidity where I'm at right now, so I can't paint it anyway. So as soon as I get this sanded, humidity drops a little bit, we're going to come back and go try to paint it again. Well, I got to do something I really didn't want to do. I wanted to paint it outside in my paint tent that I had because I didn't want to paint it in my shop because of the dust. But it's about 100% humidity outside, so I'm going to have to paint it in here and hope for the best. I've got my heater turned on the floor to try to dry the air out, so I'm going to wipe these down with a tack cloth and then spray it. I've adjusted my gun, did some test sprays with it, and I should have did that to begin with. So let me wipe these down. I'll come back, we'll spray it again. Hopefully it'll turn out better. Okay, let's give it another shot. Hopefully I won't have to sand it all down and do it again. That looks 10 times better, and that was my problem. I didn't have the air pressure right. I didn't have the amount of paint coming out of the nozzle right, and it was just coming out before, and it was atomizing too much, and I was holding the spray gun too far away from the body, and it was just drying before it hit, and it just made it feel like sandpaper, really. So everything looks good now. I got a good color on it. I'm going to let that dry for 15 minutes and come back and put another coat on it. been drying for about an hour. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a light coat of clear on it first. Let it dry for a little bit, and then come back and I'm going to put a good coat. I'm going to put about 4 or 5 coats of clear on it because I'm going to come back and wet sand it. And I want it thick enough to where I don't sand through to the base coat. I put my logo sticker on it. I had some of those made. I stuck it on there and I'm going to clear coat over it so it doesn't peel off. Okay, I'm done clear coating. I got probably about 6 coats, 6 maybe 7 coats on it. Because I used a duplicolored clear, and on the can it says if you're going to wet sand it, you need to put a little bit more than 4 coats on it. So I'll put 6, 7. I'm going to let it dry for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. I'm going to let it make sure that it gets good and dry and hard before I wet sand it. And then we're going to go from there, wet sand it, and once I get all that done, I can start putting it together.